Ever feel like you're stuck, just going through the motions, like you're capable of so much more, but something's holding you back?
Hmm.
Well, get ready to break free because today we're diving into Mastery by George Leonard.
Yes.
You sent over some fascinating excerpts, and we're
Oh.
excited to unpack the secrets
Hmm.
to unlocking your full potential.
You know what's striking about Leonard's approach
What's that?
is that he doesn't frame mastery as this, distant peak reserved for a chosen few.
Right?
He says we're all hardwired for it. Think about a child learning to walk.
Uh-huh.
They fall countless times, but they keep getting back up,
Yeah.
driven by this innate desire to master the skill.
Okay. That's a great point. But why does it feel so much harder as adults? Remember those piano lessons you begged for?
Oh, yeah.
Then quit after a month because hot cross buns got boring.
That's where the mastery curve comes in. Leonard brilliantly illustrates how it's not about linear progress. We tend to imagine this straight climb to expertise,
Right.
but the reality is much more nuanced.
And less glamorous, right?
Yeah.
Leonard uses the example of a beginner tennis player. You're full of excitement at first, hitting those early milestones, feeling like a natural,
Exactly. But then you inevitably hit a plateau.
yes.
That frustrating phase where improvement seems to stall no matter how much you practice.
Right.
And this is where many people give up, assuming they've hit their limit.
The dreaded plateau.
Yeah.
I can relate to that feeling of hitting a wall. So what's the key to pushing through those inevitable roadblocks?
Leonard's insight is that the plateau isn't a sign of failure, but a critical part of the journey. It's where we confront our limitations, develop resilience, and deepen our understanding.
So how do we navigate those frustrating stretches without giving up?
Yeah.
Leonard identifies 3 common learning approaches, right?
He does.
The dabbler, the obsessive, and the hacker.
And each one has a distinct pattern on that mastery curve. Let's start with the dabbler. They're drawn to the initial excitement of a new skill, but the moment they hit that plateau, their interest fizzles. They're off to the next shiny thing before they've even scratched the surface.
Oh, I know a few dabblers. They have a graveyard of unfinished projects, always chasing the novelty of the beginner phase.
Then there's the obsessive. Driven by results, they attack the mastery curve with intensity. But they struggle with setbacks, get frustrated by the plateau, and are prone to burnout.
The all-or-nothing approach, I can see how that would be unsustainable in the long run. What about the hacker? Where do they fall on the spectrum?
The hacker is all about efficiency. They want to reach a level of competency, but they're not interested in pushing beyond that. They're content to stay on that plateau, avoiding the discomfort of stretching their abilities.
So they're playing it safe, staying within their comfort zone.
Yeah.
But is that really fulfilling in the long run? It seems like they're missing out on the true depth and richness of mastery.
That's a great observation. And it leads us to one of Leonard's most thought-provoking arguments. He says there's a cultural force at play that actively works against mastery. He calls it America's war against mastery.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What does he mean by that? Is he saying there's something about American culture that sabotages our pursuit of excellence?
He's pointing to the societal pressures that prioritize quick fixes, instant gratification, and a constant pursuit of the next climax. He uses a roller coaster analogy, always chasing that peak, never wanting to be in the valleys or on the flat stretches.
Wow, that roller coaster metaphor is so apt. It's like we're conditioned to crave the next thrill, the next dopamine hit, rather than embracing the journey itself.
Exactly. And Leonard argues that this mindset is pervasive, from advertising to how we approach medicine business and even our personal lives. Always seeking the easy button, the overnight success, the instant solution.
So we're bombarded with messages that tell us to bypass the hard work, the messy middle, and just jump straight to the reward.
Right.
No wonder so many of us struggle with long-term commitment and fulfillment.
Yeah.
But Leonard doesn't leave us hanging, right?
Yep.
He offers a roadmap to achieving mastery, even in a culture that seems to be working against it.
He absolutely does. He lays out 5 essential keys to mastery.
Yeah.
Instruction, practice, surrender, intentionality, and the edge. And each one plays a crucial role in navigating that journey of growth and fulfillment.
Let's dive into these keys, starting with instruction. I think we intuitively understand that having a good teacher can make a world of difference. But what does Leonard specifically emphasize about the role of instruction?
Leonard is adamant that good instruction is essential. You can learn some things on your own, but if you're serious about mastering a skill, you need a guide, a mentor, someone who's walked the path before you.
He compares trying to achieve mastery without instruction to those early explorers setting off without a map, right?
Yeah.
You might stumble upon some interesting things, but you're more likely to get lost or end up in dangerous territory.
Exactly. And he also highlights that a good teacher isn't necessarily the one with the most impressive credentials or the longest lineage. It's about finding someone who can connect with you as a learner, who can see your potential and challenge you to grow. He actually shares a compelling anecdote from his time as a flight instructor during World War II.
Oh, yes. Tell us about that story. It really stuck with me.
So, Leonard was a young instructor, barely older than his students tasked with teaching them to fly the B-25 bomber. High stakes, to say the least.
Yeah.
He had 4 students, 2 of whom were naturals, incredibly talented pilots. The other 2, however, struggled. They were what he called mediocre.
I'm guessing he focused his attention on the star pupils trying to polish their already impressive skills.
Surprisingly, he did the opposite. He knew the naturally gifted pilots would likely excel regardless, but he saw potential in those 2 struggling students. So he poured his energy into helping them improve. He had them practice relentlessly, held them to high standards, and never gave up on them.
So instead of focusing on the ones who were already ahead, he chose to invest in the underdogs. What was the outcome?
The results were remarkable. Those 2 mediocre pilots ended up becoming exceptional bombers, and Leonard learned a valuable lesson that day. A good teacher doesn't just nurture existing talent, they help unlock hidden potential.
That story is so inspiring. It reminds us that everyone has the capacity for growth, given the right guidance and support. Okay, let's move on to the second key, practice. I think we all know practice is important, but why is it so crucial in the context of mastery?
Leonard talks about the importance of loving the plateau. Remember, the plateau is that frustrating period where you feel like you're not making progress. It's easy to get discouraged and give up, but Leonard argues that it's during these periods of sustained, consistent practice that the real transformation happens.
I love that phrase, loving the plateau. It seems counterintuitive, but it makes sense. We're so fixated on achieving the end goal, on those moments of breakthrough, that we forget to appreciate the journey itself.
Precisely. He uses the example of his own father, who found joy in his daily work routine. It wasn't a glamorous job, but he approached it with a sense of purpose and diligence, finding satisfaction in the rhythm and details of his work. He mastered his craft by showing up day after day, even when it felt mundane.
So mastery isn't just about reaching a specific destination. It's about cultivating a mindset of dedication, consistency, and finding joy in the process itself.
Exactly. It's about embracing the entire journey, the challenges and the triumphs, the plateaus and the breakthroughs. And the next key, surrender, really builds on this idea.
Okay, surrender. This one feels a bit paradoxical. We tend to think of mastery as being about control, about pushing ourselves, about willpower. How does surrender fit into that equation?
Here's where Leonard draws on his experience in Aikido, a Japanese martial art that emphasizes harmony and blending with your opponent's energy. He argues that true mastery requires a certain letting go, a willingness to embrace what he calls beginner's mind.
I'm seeing how these keys are interconnected. It's not just about grinding it out. It's about approaching practice with openness, humility, and a willingness to learn from our mistakes. And the story he tells about the 2 Aikido experts really illustrates this, doesn't it?
It does. It's the story of Russell, a highly accomplished martial artist, and Tony, a relative newcomer to the art. Russell had all the credentials, the black belts, years of experience. But when he started learning Aikido, he struggled to let go of his previous training, clinging to his old techniques and ways of thinking.
So even though he was technically skilled, he was holding himself back by clinging to those familiar patterns.
Exactly. Tony, on the other hand, approached Aikido with a sense of openness and humility. He was willing to let go of his ego to look foolish in the pursuit of learning something new, and as a result, he progressed much faster than Russell.
That's such a powerful reminder that sometimes in order to truly master something, we need to unlearn what we already know to approach the practice with fresh eyes and a beginner's mindset. Okay, that brings us to the 4th key, intentionality. This is where Leonard delves into the power of the mind, right?
Yes, he emphasizes the importance of visualization, the role our thoughts and beliefs play in shaping our reality, and how our mental models impact our journey towards mastery.
He talks about athletes like Jack Nicklaus using visualization to improve their performance, right? Mentally rehearsing the perfect shot before they ever step onto the golf course.
Exactly. And Leonard argues that this kind of mental practice is just as important as physical practice. Our thoughts, our beliefs, our mental images, they all shape our reality.
So it's not just about putting in the hours, it's about approaching those hours with intention, with a clear vision of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
But how does this apply to other areas of life? Can we use intentionality to, say, master our relationships or our careers?
Absolutely. It's about bringing that same level of awareness, focus, and intention to everything we do.
Hmm.
Whether it's writing a report, having a difficult conversation, or even just washing the dishes. It's about being fully present in each moment rather than operating on autopilot.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about transforming those mundane everyday activities into opportunities for practice, for mindfulness, for bringing our full attention to the task at hand. Which leads us beautifully to the final key and perhaps the most intriguing one, the edge.
Yes, the edge. This is where Leonard challenges us to step outside of our comfort zones, to embrace risk, to push beyond what we think we're capable of.
Okay, the edge. I have to admit that sounds a little intimidating. What does it actually mean to embrace the edge in the pursuit of mastery?
Think of it this way. Comfort zones are cozy, but they're not where the real magic happens. The edge is all about pushing past those comfortable boundaries, venturing into the realm of the unknown. It's about finding that sweet spot between complacency and recklessness where true growth and transformation occur.
So it's not about throwing caution to the wind and doing something totally crazy. It's about calculated risk-taking, about stepping outside our comfort zone in a way that feels both challenging and exciting.
Exactly. It's about embracing that feeling of healthy unease that signals we're stretching ourselves, learning and evolving. That's where we tap into a level of potential we didn't even know we had.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But how does this apply to, say, my everyday life? I'm not exactly scaling mountains or performing death-defying stunts. Where's the edge in writing a report or having a difficult conversation?
That's where it gets really interesting. Remember, the edge isn't about external feats, it's about internal expansion. In your examples, the edge might be trying a new writing technique that feels a little risky, or finally initiating that conversation you've been putting off. It's about pushing your own personal boundaries, whatever they may be.
So embracing the edge is about constantly evolving, about challenging myself to get a little bit better, a little braver, a little more creative each day.
Precisely. It's about seeing the journey of mastery as a lifelong pursuit, a never-ending quest to expand your skills and knowledge. And the beautiful thing is, this journey isn't just about personal achievement, it's about contributing to the world in a meaningful way.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into mastery, what would you say is the biggest takeaway for our listener?
I think the most important message is this. Mastery is not some mystical state reserved for a select few. It's a process, a journey that's available to anyone willing to embrace the 5 keys: instruction, practice, surrender, intentionality, and the edge.
Beautifully said. And remember, the plateau is not the enemy. It's an essential part of the journey. It's where the real transformation happens.
Absolutely. And by embracing those plateaus, by finding joy in the consistent practice, we transform those seemingly mundane activities into opportunities for growth and fulfillment.
Okay, before we go, I have one final question.
Mhm.
What's one tangible action our listener can take this week to start applying these principles of mastery in their own life?
I'd encourage them to choose one of the 5 keys that resonates most strongly and find a way to incorporate it into their daily routine. Maybe it's seeking out a mentor in a field they're passionate about or committing to a regular practice schedule for a skill they want to develop. Even the smallest steps taken consistently can lead to extraordinary results.
Such a great point. Mastery is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Enjoy the journey, embrace the challenges, and never stop learning and growing.
Well said.